So, hi everyone, welcome to this session. Today we're going to be looking at developing formative assessment using video. So there'll be a little bit of discussion at the start around the why, and then we'll just get stuck into the how we do it, exploring some of the tools that come with the iPad. And the overall kind of idea here is obviously to support impact on students learning, etc. So if you haven't met me before, my name is Matt Pullen. I work at the South Wales Apple Regional Training Centre based in South Wales. Great to be joined today by past students and current students, as well as other people from around the country, which is fantastic to see. In the session itself, we're going to be using iMovie mostly. We're going to also take a look at clips as well, as a tool to use, but really just kind of using the power of the iPad and the camera to help us with creating things. And I'm sure people have been doing this an awful lot recently with obviously COVID, etc. in mind. So our agenda for the session today, we're going to take a look at just how to get started with using video and images. We're going to think about designing alternative ways to provide feedback for students. And have learners show their learning, and possibly more the second part in terms of providing students with alternative ways to show us their learning. Again, one, because of COVID, but two, also thinking about accessibility features for students in terms of, just how they can demonstrate learning and understanding. If you haven't seen before, I've created a couple of guides that can support with this, just Apple Teacher Support Guides. They go alongside what we're doing. I'm going to place the links into the chat window. There is a Welsh version of this for our Welsh colleagues on the call, or an English version as well. And the book itself just really supports ideas of what you can do with iMovie in the classroom, other ways of using some of the skills that go alongside this, and will just help you apply Apple Teacher in your own setting. So today we're going to look at the water cycle as an example, just because it's a theme that we're using across the sessions that we're doing as part of an RTC. But obviously you can do this with absolutely any things that you're doing in terms of your subject or phase of learning that you're at. Now, I'd like to start the sessions by thinking about some research around why we're saying this. So we're talking about using technology more, but really that should come with some research to back up those things as well. So this was some documentation I found online. The link again, I'll place in the chat window if I can find it. And it talks about why formative assessment through video is supportive. And this was kind of the main thing I took from reading this article, was that students actually were more motivated to revise their work in a project because they could instantly see what was happening, and they're encouraged to then keep refining it. It was less invasive than a written document that then might get marked and have assessment all over it, and that was quite sort of fearful for a lot of the students in the document where the article that I was reading through. And I think that kind of marries up with my own thought process about creating video. Is there's some form of creativity to it. It's less kind of focused just on whether I've spelt a word right or whether I've put punctuation in the right way, which obviously is important, but so is the content that I'm trying to share at the same time. So we talk about access, we talk about choice as being something that's really, really important. So let's get started. Like I said, we're going to kind of break down what iMovie is, what we can do with it, how to just kind of use the application. There's been some new additions to iMovie in the last few months. So if you haven't used iMovie recently, you'll notice that there are some changes to this. So we're going to take a look at how we can trim our clips, how we can transition between those clips, adding images, developing the video further by adding in other tools into that as well. And then finally thinking about adding voiceover, which probably is the main part of what we're going to be working on in the session today. So I'm going to jump out of Keynote for a second and jump into iMovie. So if you're new to iMovie, this is the app here. It's a free app to download. It comes standard on devices when you buy them, but you can download it also from the App Store. As with most Apple apps, you'll see that we go straight into this kind of project library where you can see work that you've already started on. I'm just going to tap on the plus here. And there's two things that you can get creating with. The first one is movie, which is what we're going to spend the time today looking at. And the other one is trailer. I'm going to briefly go into this just because, you see it when you go into it, so it's worthwhile just highlighting what it is. Trailer allows you to create a 1 minute or so clip based on a theme. So you'll see all the different themes here. And it's a really, really good way for students to think about storyboarding and process. So what clips would I need in order to make a movie? If, for example, I choose this family one, I don't need to worry too much about the themes. That's all done for me. But if I go into this, you'll see that I have the option to have this outline, who's in my movie, and then a storyboard, what's that movie going to look like, broken down with text between each section. So it's not necessarily what we're talking about today, but it's useful to kind of highlight that that is a tool. This is a great way of getting students to review books that they've read, find the key elements of a story. And it could be a process within science. If you change the text within this, it could be absolutely anything. First do this, then do this, etc. It's just a process. But we're going to look at the movie one. So this is kind of the more detail. So I'm going to jump into this. And you'll see the first page we have here is all of the stuff that's on my device. So these are all like recently taken photos or videos. You can then separate just your videos, just photos, albums that you have. So if you do, organize your videos and photos into sections, you'll be able to find those within your albums. And then this is the new addition. This is backgrounds. So it now allows you to not just have text on photos or videos, but you can actually design backgrounds. So if I tap onto this, you'll see that it gives me just some solid colors, gradient colors, and some simple patterns that I could have maybe as an introduction or a segue between sections or an ending screen. So it doesn't have to just be a photo or a video anymore. Now you can start at this point by selecting the pictures or videos, or you can just go into Create Movie and start with this blank template. So a couple of different ways to go into it. You'll see now here I still have access to all of those sections here. So let's get started just by starting to build something. And I'm going to just ask you to kind of play along with this. So hopefully you've got an iPad at hand and you can build as we're going along. And if you want to use the chat window, if you've got any questions, feel free to just type away in the chat window or also just come off mute and just ask your question. Absolutely fine with me if you need to just stop me and go over anything. So let's get started with this. I'm going to want an introduction to my video. This video is going to be about the water cycle, like I said, and I could go in with a photo. So I could go in, choose a photo. I'll just find an image here. This one works fine. Picture of me. Drop that in. So I just need to download it, tap the plus. And then I've got this picture here that I could have an intro screen over. Equally though, I now have that additional option of using backgrounds. So the first thing we're going to do is just have this background intro to my video. So I quite like just having this sort of black gray kind of gradient background. I'm just going to select it and move it to the front. And for the purposes of this, I'm just going to get rid of the picture of me. It was just really to highlight that you could do this over a picture. And you'll see now that I just have this still background. There's nothing on it, but I can now add to it. So to add to it, if I tap on the image itself, so here, you'll see that it's now outlined in yellow. I have some additional options and that appear down the bottom. I'm going to tap on titles, and you'll see that I get a range of title styles all across the bottom. And they range in terms of the amount of text, the font style, etc. on the screen. So these are all just styles that you can have on the screen. I quite like this pop-up one, but feel free to choose any style that you want. When you've chosen your style, you then tap on the text itself, tap edit, and it's going to let you change the text. So I'm just going to type in here, my water cycle. There we go. So have a go at that. Just take a couple of seconds, just add your background, add your different titles. And then once you've got that text on the screen, we'll have a look at some of the things that we can now do, again, in a fairly recent update to change some of this. And again, any questions, shout out in the chat window. It's nice to see we've got a good range. We've got some are from America, some are from Romania, some are from Ireland, and then people more locally then in South Wales. So hi everyone and welcome. Great to have you here with us. Okay, fab. So now hopefully you've got a background and you have some text. Now, the old version of iMovie, if you haven't seen the update, that used to be about it. So one, you wouldn't have the colored background, and two, your text would be wherever your text is according to the style you've chosen here. Now, there's a couple of things that you can now change. Up above the text options, you can see that there are some additional options. So I can tap on the two A's and I can change the font style. So there's lots of different fonts that I can choose in here. So again, from a student point of view, lots of times you get them to think about like, who is the video for? And you know, some fonts might be more playful, some fonts might be more serious, etc. I'm just going to stick to, oh no, it's too spread out. There we go, I'm going to go for that one. Quite a nice style. Now, equally, when you used to add pictures, text over pictures, the font was always white, which meant that if you had a white background, you wouldn't be able to see the text. Now we can change the font color as well. So you'll see that we have that kind of familiar kind of interface. You can change the colors. Again, finding one that works for you. I'm just going to leave it as white, but you can see that you can have a range of those colors, including a color picker, which is quite useful. If you are on a picture, I can choose the color. So this will just allow me to find anything on the screen to choose that color. So being really refined in terms of those things. I'm going to keep mine white. And then finally, if I tap on the text itself, you can also move where you want that text to appear on your screen. Again, really allowing you to have that fine control over exactly where you want the text, what you want it to look like, you know, how big and small you want it. So I'm just pinching to zoom in on the text just to make it bigger on the screen. There we go. So just playing around with just those introduction pieces. Now, whilst you're adding to yours, I'm just going to add in one extra touch, and that is I want to put my name on this. So it's my water cycle video. And if I play this through just by running the timeline bar, you'll notice that the text disappears and it's just going to be gray for a while. So what I'm going to do here is let's have a look at how we can trim videos, how we can split things. So this is 6 seconds long. At the point where the text finishes, I want to be able to split this. So I'm going to tap now on actions. I'm going to move it to that text disappearing and tap on split. And you'll see now that I've just created a transition here between the two parts. So I've got this introduction bit, and then that fades out, and then it's going to transition to a new section. And now, because it's a new section, I can go to titles again. I can choose a new bit of text. Again, I'm going to tap on that, edit, and I'll just put my name, Matthew. So again, just using the ability there to just add in a split means that I can use that same background and have the text appear in two different ways onto the screen. And again, I could change where that text sits on the screen. Might want to put that in the bottom corner here. I could change the color. I could even change the background of this slide. Again, by tapping up here, you have this finite control of the color options that you want on your slides. So there we go. So again, have a play with that. Just add in that split and put your name on the second piece. Hopefully that all makes sense so far. Okay, now for this next part, in case you weren't on a previous session, I'm going to provide you with the contents for the next piece. So we're going to do this about the water cycle. If you weren't in the previous session, we created a water cycle video that looks something like this. And this is created in Keynote and exported as a movie. So if you didn't have this last time, I've put it into the chat window and you can download this as a presentation. I'm going to show you then how to turn it into a video. And obviously If you didn't do this last time, check out the video on the YouTube channel and it'll show you how to do this. So hopefully you can download this water cycle presentation. Here's the presentation here. So again, last session showed us how to make this. You may well have a video of your own as well that you've already made. If not, download that Keynote deck, tap on the 3 dots in the top right corner, tap on export, and you're going to export this as a movie. You don't need to change anything here. Just make sure that the settings here are both on 0, so that it transitions after 0 seconds. It just makes it a more refined kind of video. And then when you tap export, it's just going to create that as a video on your device. And then we're going to use that video in the next part of our activity. So again, I'll give you a moment to just, if you haven't got that already, download that from the chat window, open it in Keynote, and then go to that 3 dots, export, choose movie, and then eventually you'll get to this point where you can just save that video to your device, which is what we're going to use in the next section. So again, I'll just pause just for a second, just in case people are doing that. When people are ready, if you just want to give me a yes in the chat window that you're happy to move on, I'll know not to move too far ahead of people as we're creating. Thanks, Fab, for that. People are getting there at this point. That's great. And one thing to say whilst people are just working on that, you can add any video into this. So we're doing this from a learner point of view, but if I've got access to any video on my device, I can do a lot of this building. So everything that we're showing you today, I'm trying to use it in a context of different ways of assessing students' work, or different ways for students to be able to show me their learning. But the ideas around how to use iMovie in a classroom are unlimited, really. Just depends on what you come up with. So okay, so hopefully now that video is downloaded onto your device. I've got my start point. So this is my timeline down the bottom. There's my first part of the video, second part of the video. I'm going to move the white line, that's the play point, to the very end. And I'm going to choose video at the top. And I'm going to find my video. Now, in your case, it will probably be your most recently added video that will appear here. In my case, I've added this to an album. He says, trying to speed up the process, but actually my albums aren't very organized. Here goes the water cycle. Here's that video. And we can tap on that video. Yours shouldn't have the cloud icon. It's just mine hasn't downloaded onto my device. Yours should look something like this. And now just to go through some of the options here when we're adding something in. If I tap plus, it drops the whole video directly down onto the play head here. If I tap play, it's just going to let me play through that video. You'll see it just plays through. It gives me the white bar, shows me where I am. So again, just checking through the video before I do anything with it, just allows me to check what I've got. And then the 3 dots allow you to add it in a range of ways. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. It's a useful tool that you can see, including green and blue screen, which is a really, really nice touch. Not necessarily what we're looking at in today's session, but useful to know that they are different ways you can add in video. All I'm going to do, though, is just tap on the plus to add the whole video in, because I'm going to use the whole video in one, because we wanted to look at how we can separate this, etc. So you'll see that I now have this video that we created ahead of time in Keynote that I now want to use as a way for students to demonstrate their learning to me. So again, hopefully everyone is up with us on that. Now, I could ask the student straight away to just record an audio voiceover on this and just ask them to talk through the whole process from start to finish, which would take them about 30 seconds because the video is about 30 seconds long. But you'll know, even as adults, that sometimes we make mistakes. And if I've recorded 30 seconds and I make the mistake after 25 seconds and I've got to do the whole thing again, that can just lead to frustrations. So what we're going to do is think about how we can break up this video and just learn some of the skills within iMovie as we go through the process. So again, I'm going to select the video. I'm going to move through the video to the point where I think I might want to add in my first bit of information. And actually here, it's the fact that the rain is falling. So I'm going to select it at that point, tap split. It's going to cut that video for me in the same way we did here on the video. At this point, I'm going to choose some titles and I'm going to think of some titles that I want to add in. And I'll just say rainfall, or you might say precipitation, or depending on the level of students you're working with, I'll just say rainfalls. And again, you'll see here the reason why changing the color of the text is important, because if that text was here, it's not as easy to read. So again, being able to change the color of the text is a useful thing. Also being able to change where the text sits and equally the size of the text. So I'm going to place it by here. And you'll see that now as I play through this part of the slide, it's just going to appear on the screen and help support that learning. Now I've probably placed that in the wrong place because it's not showing the rainfall until here. So I'm going to select here, and there's a reason I'm showing you this. In doing this, like where do I put the text? This is the learning process for the students because they're actually trial and error. So the process here is part of the assessment. Does the text here show rainfall? No, it doesn't. So actually it's not well placed at this point. So actually I'm going to delete this and I'm going to make sure it goes onto this one because this is where it shows rainfall. So I go into here, do the same thing, add that text, choose the text that I want to add in, edit, and I'll just type in rainfall. Again, I might want to choose where that text goes. Maybe it goes alongside the rain, and then I can try that out just to make sure it works. There we go. So now it makes sense. So again, have a go yourselves. Just think about breaking up that video and where you might add in that text. And where do you stop to then add in the next part? And what happens next? So you can't rejoin them, so great question, but the transitions here, if you just have no transition, it doesn't do anything. So it will stay as a split clip, but it doesn't change anything. There is no transition unless you add a transition. So at this point, can you see between that clip and that clip, there is a transition here, which is this dissolve one. And you'll see it dissolves from one clip to the next. Between this clip and this clip, there's no transition there. It actually just carries on playing. So if you've made the mistake, it doesn't really make any difference. You can use the back button, which is here, which is undo. But, you know, like I said, it doesn't really make much difference if you put it in the wrong place. But that will undo it if you have created that. Okay, so hopefully you've got through that first step. Next step then is basically the rivers form, and that takes quite a long time. It's going to flow all the way down. It's going to flow down to the sea. So again, I'm going to split the clip here. And actually what I've given myself probably is about 3 seconds to say this, which probably isn't enough time. So on this clip, I'm going to choose speed, and I'm actually going to make this a longer clip. Just by slowing down, you'll see that it's just stretching that clip. So now I've got more time to talk over this clip. I've just extended the time I have to talk over the clip. So playing around with the time, you can speed things up and have it go twice as fast. You can slow things down, just give yourselves more time to talk over it. So when you created the clip in the first place, you might not have thought about how long you need. You know, because that's a next step in terms of creating the animation in the first place. So it's useful to just know that if you just need more time, you can just extend the clip here. So again, feel free to do that and just extend that middle clip out because you will need more time to just explain the process, because we're going to talk about streams and then rivers and then flowing down to the sea. And equally, again, here, we would probably add in some more clips, maybe just using the terminology, because that's something we want to learn from the students. So I'm going to go to titles, and I'm going to choose one that's probably got more than one line of text. If I've got that option. There we go. So on the top line, I'm going to type streams. And then on the second line, I'm going to type rivers. Because it kind of shows that we've got those two things. So again, just using some of the design features that you have in there just to create that for yourself. Yeah, that's a good idea. So great tip there from Sharon, typing out what she's going to say, and then I know how long the clip should be, and practice your narration. So really good tip. Thanks, Sharon, for that one. Now with this one, you'll notice that the text disappears after a while. So what we can also do is, if I've selected the text, 3 dots here, I actually want this to stay for the full clip duration. So if I turn that on, it's now going to appear at the start of the clip. And it's going to stay for the clip duration, and then it will disappear at the end of the clip. Okay, so again, you can extend these. By default, they tend to sort of stay on the screen for about 1, maybe 2 seconds. In this case, I actually want it to stay on the screen for the whole time. So again, just to show where that is, make sure that the text is selected, 3 dots, and then you've got the options down here to add in different things. Now, it's also useful at this point to highlight that you can also add in sound effects. So if I turn on sound effects, it will add a sound effect as the text is coming up onto the screen. Totally optional to have that on there. Useful to know that it's there if students want to use it, but you can add those in, and your sound effects are then over here under audio. So we're starting to get somewhere now with our video. We've got up to the point that the water has gone to the sea. And the next part is that we're going to add in that evaporation occurs. So again, I'm going to want to add this in probably as a couple of different sections. So I'm going to split the clip here. And then within here, I want to just add in that element of the title. And I'm going to have this one say evaporation. And if you don't teach the water cycle, hopefully you can see how this would apply in your own subjects that you teach. And the idea is that in building this, I'm repeating the terminology, I'm typing the terminology, I'm thinking about the process. I'm not just writing it down. I'm going through the process as a cycle. Now, this could be, you know, how to build a car. It could be the life cycle of a butterfly. It could be you're practicing different moves in sport. It could be the blood cells moving around the body. Fundamentally, if you've got a video that you can break down in this way, you just add in the annotation over the top, and then eventually we're going to add the narration in as well. So there we go. And then the final thing is that clouds form, and then the whole thing starts again. So again, I'm going to actually just extend this a little bit. I think I'm probably going to need more time to talk over this. And then we're done. That's it in terms of our editing. So we've looked at how to add in the text. We've looked at how to extend a clip, and we've looked at how to, well, we will look at how we will also add in our narration over the top. Now, the last thing I want on my slide is it just goes to black. That's a bit boring. So I'm going to add a final frame, which just says thank you. So I'm going to go back to my background. I'm going to choose just a nice pattern here, I think. Blue pattern, I think, will be nice. And then again, I'm just going to put in some text and just out of politeness, it's just going to say thanks for watching. There we go. There. Perfect. So I hope everyone is getting on okay with that. Now, this is absolutely the most simple example of how to use this. I've just added in just a couple of titles just to add in that content. I've broken the clips up just so that I can see the different sections. And now we're going to do the kind of important part, which is add the voiceover. Now, the reason that we've split this up into sections is that I don't have to record this in all one go. And actually, if I talk over a piece, I can go back and extend the clip afterwards. So I'm going to go through this now, and I'm just going to start recording. So tap on the microphone here. Tap record. It gives you a countdown. Welcome to my session on the water cycle. My name is Matt Pullen. The water cycle starts by okay, made a mistake. So I can stop that. I can accept it. And now I can just trim this out. I know that everything was fine. Oops. I know that everything was fine up to the bit where I start talking about the water cycle. So I'm going to edit all of that back and just leave it there. Now I don't have to re-record it. I'm just editing what I've said. Now I can start on this next part and do the next piece. Go back to record, tap record. Cycle. My name is Matt Pullen. The water cycle starts with the clouds forming over high ground and rain occurring. That then leads into streams and rivers that form, eventually running all the way down to the sea. There we go. You get the idea. So it's just this idea of adding things in. Now, because I've done this as a separate section, I can re-record this section if I need to. As Sharon highlighted, you could have this written down so that you're just reading a script. So again, there's a literacy link to this, thinking about what you want to say for your clip, practicing things. Now, what you'll notice is I've said all of this, and actually my clip is too long. So now I'm going to go back and edit this, and I'm actually going to make the clip a little bit shorter. So it's really, really quick and easy ways to just edit these things as you're working through them. So again, I'll stop talking for a bit just in case it picks up my voice on your videos, but have a go at just recording some simple narration over the top of your video. Okay, great. So before I move on to the next part, any questions at all about that process? Fairly straightforward, very easy for young learners to be able to do that. It's just tapping the buttons on the screen. Once they know where the buttons are, they'll know what they're doing. It's really about giving them the tools to be able to express themselves in a slightly different way. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other options that we can add into this then. So I'm going to come out of iMovie. And we're going to try this in a slightly different way. So we could have created the whole video by doing our voiceover in that way, but I'm just going to show you some of the other tools that you can use. So for this one, I'm going to open my camera on the device, turn the camera around. Afternoon, everyone. And this time I'm going to turn on the video and I'm going to record a video just using my camera, talking through what I've done. So I could have a script here, for example. I'm just going to talk to camera, expressing my understanding of the water cycle. So let me just tap on this, thinking where about my video got up to, so I know which part I'm talking about. Once the water gets back to the sea, the process of evaporation occurs. The sun will start to warm up the oceans, and you'll see that the water vapor appears and forms as clouds. There we go. I'm going to jump back into iMovie. Instead of having the voiceover here, we're going to look at a different way that we could create this so that it's got my voiceover. I'm going to go to video. In that last So recently added should be that video that I've just taken there. I'm going to select that video. And this time, instead of adding the video, I'm going to tap on the 3 dots. I'm going to choose this to be a picture in picture. Now I could add this in various different ways. I could just use the audio. I could have it as a split screen, which would put my face on half the screen alongside this video. But I'm going to use picture in picture. You'll notice that that video then appears above that. So we've kind of got layers working here. And my video is on the screen there. If I tap on the video here, I can then move where this appears on the screen. So actually, I think I'm talking about evaporation, so then it might work well to go here. You can make it bigger and smaller, so pinch to zoom, etc. So if I wanted to zoom in, which I really don't on mine, you can have it there. So it just gives you those options to just kind of move those things around on the screen as to where you might want them to go. Now, what that does instead is it's now not just my voice, it's now me talking over the top. It might be an option that you want to do to have your video in the video that you've created as well as part of your animation. And again, if I need to shrink the video a little bit, because I think actually I end up talking less than I thought I would. There we go. So it just ends that video that way. So again, have a go. Just record yourself talking. Look at how you can add that video into your narration. Just adds a different effect. And I've seen this used quite a lot recently with teachers wanting to have themselves talking over presentations that they're doing. So the same applies. You could just add that video into iMovie, or equally, you could add that directly into Keynote as well. Okay, great. So no questions. Hopefully people are getting busy making their videos. Like I said, it doesn't have to be about the water cycle. I joke a lot about the fact that most of my presentations end up being about the water cycle, but for the purposes of our RTC session, it was more just the continuity of creating something, planning something, and then using it for something else. But like I said, please do share some ideas of how else you could do this. I've done this before with learners in school where we call it the David Attenborough lesson. I teach quite a lot of science stuff. And in the same way as I've got this as the water cycle, I've done this with the life cycle of a plant, with some videos that I've got where it's just wildlife. And then you ask the students to create the voiceover like a David Attenborough lesson. And the idea is it's just the visual prompt to them to talk about something rather than have to write it down all the time. And I think what you'll find is it's very easy to create a video without the audio that just has the keywords. So rainfall, streams, rivers, evaporation, etc., which is fine. But there's a lot of information that students have in their head that if you ask them to share it verbally, you can unpick misconceptions. You can help identify that they know more than maybe they were willing to write down. So that's really what we're looking at here, just different ways to assess students' ongoing work. And the process here in creating this means if I make a mistake, I can quickly undo it. I can delete this audio. I can re-record the audio. If I commit it to paper, sometimes there's a fear that, you know, that's what you're going to judge me on, is that I've spelt something wrong, etc. So that's what I've been reading about a lot recently, is the fact that it's creative. I've got ownership of it. It's my voice. It's different ways to express myself. And if I make a mistake, it's really, really easy to correct that mistake as well. So Sophie's just added a comment in the chat window. Amazing for dance students. Narrate their feedback over the top of their video performance. That's such a great idea. I'll say now, Sophie, as I was a PE teacher before I do what I do now, and exactly that. Just being able to give that link between what your feedback is to the visuals that they can see for themselves changed everything. So the reason I use iPad now is because of that one thing of being able to add audio to the video to show students what you did. And equally, the flip of that, when I did assessed PE, was actually when students had to evaluate performance. If I'd asked them to write that down, it's quite a tricky thing to evaluate performance without the visual. So we just used to film them doing something, give them the iPad, give them iMovie, and just say, just do a voiceover, tell me what you see in the video. And then that was actually their assessed pieces of work. So that was, students that were studying BTEC level 2 and BTEC level 3. And it massively changed how they could access learning. So thanks for that. Okay, so that's iMovie. Unless there's any other questions around iMovie, like I said, you can add in different things. So the green screen element is really, really nice. I'll just briefly show it now, just because it is a fun tool to use. So I'm going to use that video that we've got of the water cycle, only because it's got quite a nice amount of background. And actually, I've got a green screen section. Let me use that one instead. So let's imagine that our background picture is this bee. Just add that in. So that's what I want to see in the background. And then on top of that, I'm going to add in some green screen stuff. Now, these are just green screen videos that I've got of my son doing silly little things, etc. I'm just going to choose this one. I can't remember what he's doing in it. I think he jumps or something. And he's jumping on a green background. Now, what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to make it look like he's jumping into the puddle. So you'll see that I've just filmed him with a green background. Lots of schools have this. This is a bit of fabric that I just hung up in our kitchen so that he could stand in front of it. You could be a painted wall. Doesn't have to be anything specific. But this time I'm going to tap the 3 dots, tap green, blue screen. Oops. Put at the start of the clip. And you see, again, similar to this one here, it's going to add that to the top, but now it's got rid of the green background. So it looks like he's just jumping into a puddle. So there we go. So really, really simple idea of just merging 2 things together. And you can do that with, again, that's not necessarily the purpose of today's session, but just to show you the power of iMovie and all of the things that you can do with it. Film someone in front of a green background and then just play around with what it might be that sits behind them. And again, I can just sort of reduce that clip down so it doesn't have to be the full length, etc. So that's iMovie and different ways to use iMovie. I also wanted to briefly show you clips as well. Now, if you've not seen clips before, clips is a really, really quick and simple way to jump in. Powerful tools, but probably a little bit easier to access for some people in terms of the trimming and clipping, etc. Because it's very much a point and shoot. Now, when you first open clips, this one goes straight into selfie mode. So hello, everyone. And it works in the same way. We're going to have clips along the bottom of the screen here. But what I'm going to do is just use that same water cycle video, but just show you how you can use this slightly differently. So I'm going to go to my camera roll here. And again, I'm going to find that video clip. So open my my albums, find that water cycle one. That's going to load the water cycle video in. Now you'll see that it's not loaded the video as such yet because everything I do in clips has to be recorded in. So I have access to the whole video. So I can play through the whole video by sliding through the slider here. But I'm just going to record the clip. Now, there's a couple of things that really help with this that just change how you might use this from iMovie to using it in clips. First thing is, under the star icon here, there are lots of different tools that I can add in. So I can change filters. I can add in live titles. Now, this is a really, really useful tool because what it's going to do is turn my audio into text on the screen as I say it. So you'll see there's different places where the text appears. So I'm going to choose this one just to give this as a demo. Now, unfortunately, when I show this in clips, it's not going to show it because it knows I'm trying to project my screen. So if I just record it, hopefully this works. So no, it doesn't. Oh, there we go. This is the water cycle. It starts as the clouds form above the mountains and then rain falls as precipitation. So what you'll see then, if I just come back out of that view a second, hopefully, is that's created a clip on the screen here for me, just for the duration that I've spoke then. And it just is added in that text over the top. So if I just play this back a second. This is the water cycle. It starts as the clouds form above the mountains and then rain falls as precipitation. Now I'm conscious that on your screen it's cut off the top part of where it says the text. On my screen it is there. I think it's just because of how I'm mirroring the screen. But the beauty of that is it does allow you to have audio captions on the screen, which just makes it more accessible to more people as well. For younger learners, if they are talking through something and they know the vocabulary but they don't know how to spell it, it also gives them a chance to be able to check the spelling of things and associate what they're saying with the words above as well. Now you can add other effects into this as well. So you can add in text onto the screen. So you could use arrows, etc., to point to certain things and change the text. You can also, oops, back out of that. You can also have stickers that can appear for various different things. Now, again, it depends what you're doing as to how this works. And you'll see that if you record yourself into this, you can have those stickers attached to your head as well. So there's all sorts of creative fun you can have with this. And equally, if, like me, you do get a bit shy of being on the screen, you can also add emojis. And because they act as stickers that stick to your face, you see the yellow lines that appear around it, that facial tracking helps with hiding identity as well. So again, it's a really, really kind of playful way to create video. We've done the same process. We're still using the water cycle, but we're adding in some more playful elements to things. So rather than it all being text-based, we can use stickers to highlight things, you know, different styles of text that you might want to use to call things out. Within the sticker section, there are some fun ones to play with. There's also some which, you know, are just used to annotate directly onto the video. So you can have circles circling things, etc. So again, a very, very playful way to do things. One thing, though, is the facial tracking, to have the emoji over your face. Just for some students, they want to be on the video, but they don't necessarily want to be on their face on the video. So that's another useful thing to kind of just highlight as well. Now, equally with this one, when you're done, share icon at the bottom, and you can just save that as a video that you can use, you know, share out to students or share through your online platforms, whatever it is you're using. You'll see that I've got access to Teams, OneDrive, etc. All sit on here, Seesaw, Showbie, etc. All as places where students can share this back to you in order for you to mark. So there we go. So that's clips as well. Let's jump back to our presentation. So any questions or thoughts on either of those processes to get yourself started? Feel free, just drop them in the chat window, or I'm sure people are probably still playing with clips at the moment because it is such a fun tool. Okay, fab. I'll let, if people do drop in questions, I'll answer them as we go. So the key thing around using clips, the differences with clips are it's instant use. Okay, you don't necessarily need to have any editing skills or any knowledge of how to make a video because it is point and click a lot of the time. So it's very simple. It can be more personalized because of the range of things that you can add into it, like emojis and stickers and text boxes and arrows and stars, etc. And just really, really time efficient because actually, within clips, that didn't necessarily need to be done with a pre-created slideshow. It could be something where I just grab a photo of, you know, a cloud in the sky and a puddle on the floor, and then I just talk over those things. So again, just lots and lots of different ways that you can use it. But there are lots of sessions around how to use clips in more detail, which kind of brings me to the next thing. There is an RTC site which contains loads of these training sessions. One of the, I suppose, benefits, if I can say it that way, of being in the current situation we're in is that we do have a lot more online training sessions. So I've just added a web link in the chat window to the RTC site where you'll find lots of other sessions like this that are going on around all of the UK and Ireland, where there may be something very specific around using clips, there may be something very specific around remote teaching. And because everything is online at the moment, they're easily accessible to everybody. So please do check out those things and see how you can get on with it. The last thing to say is then we've looked at iMovie in lots of detail today because it's part of the Apple Teacher suite of skills that you can get your badge for. So please do jump into the Apple Teacher Learning Center. Again, I'm going to add the website address to the chat box. So please do jump in there and go in and have a look around, but also go through your iMovie badge. You should have the ability now to access all of the questions there and get those correct. And then finally to say, take the challenge that's in the book. So the book that I've pinned into the chat window before, within there are lots of ideas for you to do with things like iMovie or clips. And as always, I'd love to see the things that people are creating. So if you are on Twitter, please feel free to tweet us using the hashtags Apple Teacher, Apple RTC, and tag us at South Wales RTC or me at Matt6453. I'd love to see what you come up with today, and any feedback on the session will be much appreciated. So before we finish, I will just leave you some time. If anybody does have any final questions or thoughts, feel free to unmute or drop them in the chat window.